All right, thank you all for being here. This is the DA's office's Monday press conference, and we are here for two purposes, as always. The first is a report on gun violence during the prior week, and the second purpose, which is our main focus today, is to talk in this neighborhood about the reality of prosecution efforts on shooting cases and on homicide cases in general. Sometimes people learn more easily from stories than they do from data. Well, we are here to tell some true stories about some cases that have been prosecuted fairly, and prosecuted vigorously against individuals who harmed or killed others. I'd like to begin by acknowledging people who are here. First of all, we have with us the Honorable Carolyn Engelteman, First Assistant District Attorney. We have ADA Joanne Pescator, who is the Chief of the DAO's United Homicide and Non-Fatal Shootings Unit. And I say that because these units were united a couple years ago under this administration. It's a decision that we all look back on and view very favorably for reasons we can discuss. We have with us ADA Sidney Pope from the DA's Homicide and Non-Fatal Shootings Unit. Ms. Pope will, among other things, with her colleague ADA Christian Wynn, also of that unit, discuss a very important homicide matter that has been successfully prosecuted. We have ADA Katie Woods, also with the Homicide and Non-Fatal Shooting Unit, who will discuss a different matter, a non-fatal shooting that she successfully prosecuted recently. We have ADA Deborah Watson-Stokes, Senior Advisor for Professional Development and Special Projects with a focus on gun violence. We have Reverend Myra Maxwell, Executive Director of the DAO's Victim Services Support Division, which now encompasses our CARES unit. CARES unit, of course, specializes in homicides, but it also encompasses our victim witness support efforts. We have Kathy Lees, who is a victim witness coordinator of the DAO's Homicide Non-Fatal Shooting Unit and who was specifically involved in the homicide matter. We have Detective Edward Tolliver of the Philadelphia Police Department Homicide Unit, who worked very effectively and put in tremendous efforts in reference to the homicide matter. We have State Senator Anthony Williams with us. We have Leader Joanna McClinton with us. And we have Rustin Johnson, father of Kiera Johnson, who is the victim of the homicide we will be discussing. Reverend W. Lonnie Herndon is the senior pastor of the Church of Christian Compassion, which has been kind enough, once again, to allow us to use this space. There is a well-attended funeral for a faith leader by the name of Evelyn Graves happening across the street. And Pastor Herndon obviously is involved heavily in that, so he may be here, we hope so, or he may be occupied with those efforts and duties across the street. Let me go briefly to this week's homicide and gun violence data. First of all, the number of homicides year to date as of February the 13th at midnight is 62. On the same date last year, there were 66. This is a slight decrease at the moment of about 6%. During this week, there were 10 homicides, and this is and 21 non-fatal shootings, a total of 140 gun or gun violence incidents. There were 91 arrests made by law enforcement, and there were 90 cases opened and charged by the DA's office from those 91 arrests. I would first like to call forward ADA Katie Wood. Katie Wood prosecuted the matter of Commonwealth versus Timothy Manley, a case that came out of the 12th Police District. I would love to tell you the details, but I would love even more for Katie Woods to tell you the details of this case. It is one more case, in my opinion. In fact, both of these cases are cases that stress the importance of forensics, the importance of video, the importance of having more evidence and stronger evidence to be able to obtain convictions. This was a jury trial that was held recently in which Katie Woods succeeded in obtaining a first-degree felony aggravated assault conviction. The sentencing in this matter has not occurred yet. It will be occurring in the fairly near future. But I am delighted to present to you first Katie Woods to speak about Commonwealth versus Timothy Manley.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Katie Wood. I'm currently assigned to the Homicide and Non-Fatal Shooting Unit at the DA's office. I recently prosecuted the case of Commonwealth versus Timothy Manley. This case stemmed from a non-fatal shooting that occurred in the 12th District near the intersection of 50th and Greenway Avenue. On March 21st of 2021, the defendant shot the complainant, who was an unarmed man retrieving groceries from his car, 2 times. The complainant was struck by 2 bullets and suffered 2 graze wounds, one to his chin and one to his right shoulder. The complainant bravely testified at trial regarding this horrific event. A necessary eyewitness was also located through joint efforts of our office as well as the Philadelphia Police Department. The defendant was found guilty by a jury of all 5 charges, the lead charge being F1 aggravated assault. All other charges were related to the firearm that the defendant utilized during this shooting. The defendant will be sentenced by the Honorable Giovanni Campbell this March. I would like to thank the Philadelphia police officers and detectives for their hard work on this case, the jury for what I believe was a fair and just verdict, and the complainant for his courageousness throughout the legal process. Thank you.
This shooting was extraordinarily senseless. All of them are senseless. But this one was extraordinarily senseless. In that, there was essentially no motivation whatsoever other than some words to the effect, words by the shooter, Mr. Manley, to the effect of the victim had looked at him or stared at him, and that somehow this justified life-threatening activity with a gun. This is an office that cares deeply about victims. We all care deeply about victims and survivors. Kiera Johnson was an art student with a beautiful future, and she is no longer with us. She was killed at the end of 2017. And unlike the Manley case, which took about a year to get to trial, the killing of Kiera Johnson took quite a while. But we got there. And we got there with some great lawyering and some great detective work. I'm going to call up together ADA Sidney Pope and ADA Christian Wynn, who tried this case. I'm also going to call up Victim Witness Coordinator Kathy Lees, and then after Ms. Pope completes her comments and any other comments from Christian Wynn or Kathy Lees, then I'll come up again to introduce Rustin Johnson, who is the father of Kiera Johnson. You may see some images up on the screen behind me. These are slides of the victim that her family has approved and provided for us to make available. It is their wish that they be shown, and because they find that appropriate, we are happy to do so. It is my honor at this time to call up ADA Sidney Pope, ADA Christian Wynn, and Victim Witness Coordinator Kathy Lees.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
7 blocks away from here. 7 blocks away from here. Underneath the bridge at Cobbs Creek and Spruce. That's where Kiera Johnson's body was found. 7 blocks away from here. On November 3rd, 2017, at 11 o'clock in the morning. There were no eyewitnesses to this crime. There were no individuals who were able to come to court to say that they saw what happened. Despite there being very little media coverage of this case, unlike other art students, other students in this city, despite there being little media coverage, the Philadelphia Police Department worked hard. Detective Edward Tolliver, who is here, worked hard, worked tirelessly, obtained surveillance video that took Kiera Johnson from 69th Street Station walking down Market Street from Upper Darby into Philadelphia, down 63rd Street as it turned into Cobbs Creek Parkway, and right by the Cobbs Creek Rec Center, a rec center that I have been to on a number of occasions, a rec center that many of you have been to, a rec center that is important to this community. And thankfully, that video also caught the last person that she was with. Kiera fought for her life as she was underneath that bridge, fought for her life so hard that the DNA from her killer was still under her fingernails 12 hours after she died, after being submerged in Cobbs Creek. The man who did this will be sentenced to life in prison tomorrow. And what I think is important here, not only to thank the detectives from the Philadelphia Police Department, some special agents from the Attorney General's office, a special agent from the FBI, and all of the family and friends of Kiera Johnson, Rustin Johnson, who is here today, Pam, his fiance, who's here today, many of her friends who are also here today, and her family, Eric, if he is here. Her mother is no longer in this city because it was too hard for her to be here. But she made sure that she could be present by these photographs that we have of Kiera so that we know who she is, remember her for the beautiful life that she had. And we hope that her story, the story of telling someone no and not being interested in a relationship with someone, will somehow help another individual, will help one of our daughters, one of our mothers, one of our sisters. Share your location with someone. Tell someone who the last person is that you are with. Because although we cannot bring Kiera back, we are hoping that with this verdict and with this justice, we are able to affect someone else's life so that they may continue to live it. I'm going to end with Kiera's words. Being an artist and growing up in a lower class home with a single parent, I have learned to use the resources I have to create bigger and better things. And so I do not feel the need to separate my passion for art and my passion for conservation. Rather, I wish to integrate the two things if there is any way possible, as I feel it is a necessity to preserve the arts, history, and nature for future generations to come, because all three of these things have played a huge role in forming the person I am today, and have done the same for many others. Krishna?
Thank you, Sid. I just would like to say, as a person who is from West Philadelphia, born and raised, it was an honor and a privilege to be able to try this case along with 88 Pope, but also an honor and a privilege on behalf of Kiera Johnson, that she, along with her family and friends, were able to finally have justice. As was said, this is a case from 2017. We're in 2022, but she had her day. And every single person who's touched this case has put in 100% to make sure that we are able to remember Kiera, not necessarily for how she died, but how she lived. and I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to be a part of that. I also would like to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to her family, to her friends, who were courageous enough to come forward, who gave statements, who cooperated with the police, which gave us an opportunity to be able to try this case the way it deserved, which gave us an opportunity to be able to give her justice. Because we are all a community, and we cannot do this by ourselves. And so I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm from Philly. I know things can be difficult. I am saying that it's important. And rarely ever is doing the right thing easy. But it makes a world of a difference when it comes time to trying these cases. Her family remembered her. Her friends stood up for her. And because of those people being able to be present, that's why we're able to be here today to say that she was able to get justice. That's why David Greer will never, ever have the opportunity to put out another life, another light, like he did with Kiera Johnson. Her death was not in vain. And so I challenge every last one of you to remember that doing the right thing is never going to be easy, but that does not negate the importance of it. And so I just want to say thank you to all those people who participated and came forward, because it made a world of difference in what we were able to do for her. She deserved it.
Thank you, Sidney Pope, Christian Wynn, and Kathy Lees for your work, for your words. So at this time, I'm going to ask Rustin Johnson, who is the father of Kiera Johnson, family and friends, to come forward. And please say whatever's on your heart.
Thank you, Larry. I'm going to make this as short as I can and brief. Good morning, everyone. I just would like to say that, when it comes to your children, sometimes they may be brats or they may be getting in a lot of trouble, but they're your kids and you love them. No matter what, those are your kids. So, for me, I'm especially proud to say that my daughter was very kind, very peace-loving. I never really had to discipline her much. She listened. She just did all the right things. And at first, you start asking the question, why me? But as time went on, I just feel more blessed to have her than anything. So, the healing is a process. I'd just like to thank a few people. Number one, Christian Johansson of KYW. Christian is the only one who broke the story, to my knowledge. And she did a great job of keeping the story alive. And just like to thank her. I'd like to also thank Detective Edward Tolliver. From day one, he stayed in contact with me. He spoke to me. He was very transparent, and step by step through his investigation, he kept us updated. Thirdly, ADA Sidney Pope. She did such a great job. It was like she knew her. And just watching her go through the process, being at the pre-trials, she was excellent. It was like watching a mechanic build a car from the bottom up. She did a very good job. Thank you, Sydney. My therapist from the Anti-Violence Partnership of Philadelphia. Can I say her name? Okay. Her name was Kim Pasadoma. She helped me get myself together and get my healing. I get a lot of credit for being strong, but it really had to do with Sydney and the good Lord. And of course, last but not least, my fiancée, Pamela Carter. She dealt with me on my worst days. it was hard, and she hung in there with me, and I love you, Pam. So all I can really say is thank you all. Thank all who loved Key and all who supported up the family during these times. And justice for Key and justice if served. Thank you.
So ADA Pope was measured. She's very careful in her comments. And they dovetail with what you just heard from Mr. Johnson. What they're saying, if I may be blunt, is that the killing of a black college student didn't register with media the same way the killing of a white college student registered with media in Philadelphia, and more than once. I hope we all leave here mindful of that. And I appreciate the credit given to Kristen Johansson for breaking that mold in this case. At this time, it's my honor to introduce Leader Joanna McClinton, followed by State Senator Anthony Williams. If Pastor Herndon is available, then I would ask him to go third. If not, then I will follow State Senator Williams, and we will go to questions at that time.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to thank Pastor Herndon, Pastor Terry, for allowing us to be here as a community to reflect on this moment in time. To Kiara's family, justice does not mean that there's immediate healing or that the pain from the tragic loss, the senseless killing, simply goes away. It doesn't vanish. It doesn't fade with the verdict that I thank my former colleague, ADA Sidney Pope, for working so very hard to get. It's still here. The pain is still here, and the pain is still fresh. Because far too often in our Cobbs Creek community and our city at large, this remains the nightmare of every parent. Every mom, every dad, every aunt, every godparent. We never want to hear the news that it's one of our children, our boys or our girls. And what we're not hearing loudly enough in our city in this moment in time is that Black women are becoming more and more targeted for violent acts. Every single time you hear about a shooting, we seem to be able to dismiss it because we think it's some boy, it's some guy. He deserved it. He was into something wrong. But it's Black women who are pregnant, trying to take out gifts from their baby shower. It's women like Kiara who are working hard for a better future that's just taken from them, and it absolutely has to stop. So I continue to pray for her family, stand in solidarity with them, and continue to fight in Harrisburg that every single bill we have, anything that's passing, it goes to prevent these types of crimes, and if they tragically occur, to ensure that our prosecutor has all of the tools in the toolbox necessary so that the police department can work collaboratively to bring justice to the moment. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm State Senator Anthony Williams, and most importantly, I'm a neighbor. I live in the Cobb Creek area, so I live about 8 blocks from here on Cobb Street Parkway. I want to obviously thank Pastor Herndon, who has always opened his church to making sure this community is included on every aspect of their lives. But I also want to turn my attention to Larry Krasner and his team for being here. I also obviously have to acknowledge Kiara's father and his family who are back there. We appreciate you being here and allowing us to tell some portion of her story while not complete. We want to make sure that her life is acknowledged in the context that all of us would want to be acknowledged. I want to do a little bit something different. I'm appreciative that Larry Krasner decided to do this here in Cobbs Creek. He was blunt, I'm blunter, if you will. The reality is that two things can be true. You can reform a system of justice, and you also can hold those who are committing crimes to account. And there's a narrative which is sort of playing out that you can't do both. You have to be soft on crime or put everyone away. And the truth is you have to be just when it comes to a judicial system. And it doesn't require you to be tough on the innocent and let the guilty go away because you don't do your job effectively. Larry Krasner and his team thanked the police department today. So despite what is written, there are more than one occasion or two where those of us doing our jobs will acknowledge those who are doing their jobs in a way that we think are important. And that is a police department that all of us think that folks in this community are repelling. No, we want more effective policing like we found in this particular case. So cases are closed with the appropriate and fair and complete justice. We also have a narrative, frankly, that Cobbs Creek is not equal to Rittenhouse Square. And for some, it's about race. For me, it's probably more about class and economic status. The fact is that many people in Cobbs Creek are concerned about protecting their lives because the reality is that many of them don't have a car. But they sure as heck are hardworking people who get up at 6 o'clock, provide for their community. And I want everybody to understand something. The overwhelming majority of people who live here certainly are black and brown, but they are citizens of this country who pay their taxes, may have served in the military, go to work every day, are law-abiding people. And bad things happen to some of them. And when that happens, I want them to be assured that this team, with our police department, with our elected officials, with our neighbors, if we participate completely, we will find the shooters, the murderers, the disruptors, those who want to prevent the quality of life in the Cobbs Creek community from going forward. Larry Krasner being here today is an extraordinary statement that we matter. This is not a political event. This is not a stunt. This is a statement that we can reform the system and hold those people who are repugnant to us, who violate other human beings, who deny the fact that we are peace-loving folks in the Cobbs Creek community and neighborhoods, whether it be North Philadelphia, South Philadelphia, across Philadelphia, that we matter. And I can't tell you how grateful my neighbors are. I cannot tell you how grateful Joanna and I are because we are neighbors, literally, in this community. And most importantly, I want people who live here to understand that this is not a one-off. This is a process that goes forward. But we all have to participate in that process. And the young lady who is an assistant DA? Yes. Assistant DA, you've done a wonderful job by defining her life does matter, but could have been done if neighbors had not participated. And so I'll close with that. I thank you all for being here today. And Larry, as usual, wonderful job. God bless you.
Thank you again to Leader McClinton and also to Senator Williams for being here, which says a lot, and also for your kind words about the excellent work done by Philadelphia Police and these very talented attorneys in my office. Just a final point, and then we'll go to questions. These were hard cases. These were difficult cases. These are cases where, for example, in the Manley shooting case, the Ring video was crucial. Crucial. It is hard to put on a case with a single witness who's going south, which is essentially what Katie Wood had to do. In the Greer case, the fingernail clippings, the fact that there was DNA under the fingernails, absolutely crucial. The fact that there was video showing David Greer walking with Kiera Johnson on the night of the killing, contextualized all of his statements that he hadn't seen her for a while. Absolutely crucial. It is one thing to suspect or know in your heart that another person is guilty, but it is another thing to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And I think both of these cases, these were very difficult cases. Both of them emphasize the incredible importance of forensics and of video in being able to prove these cases beyond a reasonable doubt. Are there any questions for any of the people gathered here?
Go ahead. You go. Yeah, Kristen, go. No, it's not about this, but it was about, so there's been, over the weekend, I understand that there were teens that kind of ran around Center City. I understand there were also 3 14-year-olds that were arrested over carjackings. Have you guys all sat down with maybe the police department to figure out what's going on with, I want to say teens and teenagers, kind of like seemingly, some would argue, out of control?
Ms. Johansson will be happy to answer more questions on that point, but frankly, I don't want to distract from this matter in which we have the family and parents of Kiera Johnson here today. Are there other questions? Yes.
I have one thing on another case and then one thing specifically about Kiera, and I wondered if her father would be willing to just tell us a little bit about her. We were looking at pictures of her. If you could just tell us a little bit about her, tell us what you and your family would like her to be remembered for.
She was just a beautiful spirit. You know, she was very kind, kind of quiet. Like I said before, very peace-loving. You know, she was really interested in like art and music and animals and nature and those kind of things. She was just very sweet.
Thank you.
Nope, you're welcome.
And I don't know if you want to do this afterwards, but I had a question about the Alan Chernoff case, and where things stand on that. We've heard that the young woman who had been arrested would only be potentially serving a few more years. Can you tell us where things stand?
Once again, I don't usually do this, but in light of the situation here where we have the father of a victim of a homicide, we have family gathered around that, I don't want to distract from this. We'll be happy to address your questions later with reference to that matter. Are there any other questions related to the matter that we have discussed here?
Yes, you say in March we'll take the sentence for this gentleman, for these homicides. Will he be convicted to the full extent?
So the sentencing of David Greer for the murder of Kiera Johnson, I understand, is occurring tomorrow. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it is a conviction in the first degree, of murder in the first degree. Under Pennsylvania law, that requires a mandatory sentence of life without any possibility of parole. So, yes, the sentence that we know is going to happen is a sentence of life without any possibility of parole. Are there any other questions related to these matters? All right. Thank you very much for being here. For anyone who has a question about another matter, please be in contact with Jane Rowe or with Lamar.